Call to order the City of Wyoming, February 4th, 2020 City Council meeting. Let the record show that we do have a quorum. Member Zeros, Member Luger, Mayor Iverson, Member Schilling, and Member Yeager are present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Council Member and Veteran Joe Zeros.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, move on to open forum. Open forum is an opportunity for members of the public to address the City Council on items that are not on the current agenda. If you'd like to speak to something on the agenda, please sign up in the back. Items requiring council action may be deferred to staff or boards and commissions for research and future council agendas if appropriate. You will be limited to 3 minutes, and we ask that you conduct yourself in a professional, courteous manner and refrain from the use of profanity. Failure to abide by this policy may result in the loss of your privileges to speak. Do we have anybody here tonight that would like to speak in the open forum? Please come on up and state your name and address for the record.
Dave Karski, 2620 Hiawatha Court. My issue is I own the car wash, the block to the west of here, and I purchased it with the signage and everything, and the rights to that signage. The sign located at Fallbrook and Viking is the sign in question. And in around 2005, my understanding from Paul Hand was that there was a planning commission and a city council meeting where he was approved to locate the sign at that intersection. That was done in conjunction with the closure of Faxton, which limited his access to his business and the visual part of it. I recently have gotten a notice to vacate that sign off of state property because the city has given that property to the state without my rights to the signage. And my wish is to locate my sign to the north, about 60 feet. There is some things that have to be checked out yet. I haven't done that, and they haven't provided the plots of where their property ends. They've given some approximates, and they're still working on those details. So that's where I'm at. I'm quite willing to fill out the paperwork for the a variance, and they will reimburse me from the state, but I was told that it wouldn't do any good.
Okay. Mr. Linwood, have you?
We've had some conversations with Mr. Karski. Essentially, we were unable to locate any minutes or permits in regards to that sign back in 2005.
He's right though.
Was
The
it-
sign was approved.
Okay.
I was on his council when it was approved
Okay.
to be moved.
We couldn't, as a staff, locate any minutes from 2005 or 6 that indicated that, and that could be, there could be some sort of verbal history that we're unaware of, but there was nothing in the.
There's a missing minutes of the planning commission.
And I think we talked about that. What we had essentially is there was a planning commission meeting, I believe in July of that year, and there was initially a meeting on the 3rd, and then there was going to be a public hearing for a special meeting on the 18th. There's no minutes for that 18th meeting, but if you go to the next meeting in August, there is a public hearing with all of those different meetings that they talked about in that previous meeting. So we're under the impression that that meeting did not take place since we have no record or minutes of it. That's the best that we can find. In regards to the variance for the off-premise sign, there has been one time that the city did allow that previously, so there is a potential on that. That's something that would have to go through the planning commission and the city council. Off-premise sign, whether it would be, you could look potentially at the neighbor to the east or maybe one of the properties to the north. That would be the best bet on that.
Okay.
And Rob, anytime a variance is applied for, it's usually for some proof of hardship.
That's correct.
Know our language, you know.
Correct. Right, and like I said, we did have one case where that was, one past practice where that was for the split rock sign, where that was allowed. So and then it could be, reviewing the ordinance, the planning commission, if there was an actual, determined if it was a hardship, if that was allowable. But I know Mr. Zerwa stated that might be the case, but we cannot find any
It was
record.
done as a hardship because it shut that avenue down.
Okay,
Let them put that sign down there further than.
okay.
Because they had access to getting in the car wash all the time right off of 22, and then that road was shut down.
And I'm not, we can go back, we went through all the planning commission of '05 and '06 to try to find something in regards to when the riverbank came in. We couldn't find anything in the minutes regarding the riverbank or documentation for that signage.
I remember when we approved it then.
So, and like I said, unless it was a verbal approval per se.
Okay, Member Schilling?
So, in this instance, right now, with us having any proof of it, he does have the opportunity to apply for a variance for an off-site, even though it's technically against our ordinance.
He would be able to do so, correct. I mean, it's essentially with the
it would be
state
up to
doing
the
the
planning
work on 2021, they needed that.
Correct, yep.
Drainage easement, or that where his sign is existing for that project, so hence why Mr. Karski received the letter from the state on that.
Mr. Karski, would it be okay if we kind of work through this process and have Mr. Linwood or Mr. Weck kind of help you if you need to come to Planning Commission? I'm the liaison on Planning Commission as well, so we can work through that process and make sure the documentation is correct and we have it this time. Would that be okay?
No, I would appreciate it.
Okay.
You know, it's a small, struggling business. I mean, I don't get in and out of it. My son, who's named after, does get paid. But, I mean, if we lose that sign, I think that we could lose 10–20% of our business, and it'll,
Okay,
it's just not, and I don't know, there's something else going up in front of it now, I think, too. So
okay,
it's probably gonna make things a little tougher.
yeah, okay.
But anyway, I appreciate your time.
Yeah,
And,
thank you for coming up
I will
and,
have more information after I meet with the state,
Okay.
sometime prior to the 9th after I take my sign down. So I think I'm gonna be without a sign for some time period, simply because of frost.
right, okay, well, and I'll make sure, being on the Planning Commission and then also just following through with Mr. Linwood and Mr. Wack and see what we can come up with. So, thank you, appreciate it. Is there anyone else? If not, we'll move along. I'm hearing reverb back. If not, we'll move to approval of minutes. Number 1, consider approving the minutes of the regular meeting of the Wyoming, Minnesota City Council for January 7th, 2020. If there are no comments or questions, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve by Member Luker. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Member Schilling. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. Consent agenda 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Does anybody wish to pull anything on the consent agenda for further questions? If not, we need a motion to approve.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve by Member Schilling. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Zeros. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Acknowledgement, receipts of reports of officers, board, commission, and department heads. That's number 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. On our agenda, does anybody wish to pull a report for further discussion? No further discussion?
Can I pull, what is this, 8?
Number 8 from.
The public safety? Is that,
Okay.
yeah.
pull number
I just
8.
had a question.
Okay, any others? All right, go ahead, Member Schilling.
Chief, I saw in here that we're gonna do a little more extensive de-escalating training for the staff. Is that the way I'm reading this correctly?
Yeah, that's correct. The state of Minnesota has implemented mandates that everybody goes through 16 hours of de-escalation training over a 3-year licensing period. And we currently satisfy that with our online training.
Right.
But through the Chiefs Association, the Chisago County Chiefs Association, we've been working on trying to improve that and add to it. So the Chiefs Association is going to bring in a trainer to do live training with our staff. So we get them probably another 4 to 6 hours of actual interaction, live training, where we'll do scenario-based stuff, so above and beyond what the state minimum requirements are.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think this is great. Thanks.
Yep.
All right, any further questions? If not, we'll move on to new business, number 13. To consider resolution 20-0217, a resolution approving the purchase of one 2020 Ford F-150 police responder pickup truck, pursuit vehicle, and build-out for the Wyoming Police Department in the amount of $42,000, $42,069.10. Chief Hoppy, are you gonna speak on this to start?
Correct. So This is one of 3 resolutions you have in there for vehicle replacements for this year. So we have 3 vehicles that are scheduled for replacement. We have a 2011 Ford Taurus, which is currently being used by the building department that has 110,000 on it. We have a 2011 Ford Taurus that's at 100,000 miles as our investigator vehicle. And then we have a 2015 Mark Squad car with 125,000 miles on it. So we're looking at moving those vehicles out of our fleet and replacing them. Part of the strategies that we're starting to use is including building department in our fleet management rotation strategies. And so currently we have an unmarked chief's vehicle that has 50,000, and we're going to rotate that down to the building department. And it should last them about 6 years in that capacity to burn off the other 50,000 miles on that vehicle. And then going forward, that vehicle is intended to be, at 50,000 rotated back down to the building department, because that one vehicle in the PD will support a replacement of 2 vehicles, and so to alternate or every 3-year period, it'll alternate bound to the building side. And so this year, we're looking at replacing that with an F-150 responder vehicle. That vehicle will eventually make it down to the building department. In discussion with the building department, the question was posed to them, would you rather see a SUV rotated down or a pickup truck and used in the building department? And the preference was, to see that the F-150, they felt that would be just a little bit better for them in the long run. The benefit to that is basically the F-150 and the SUVs are relatively the same cost now, because Ford has significantly increased the cost of their SUVs. And so we're looking at moving out that Taurus with 110,000, auctioning it off. The one with 50,000 at the PD will get put down to the building department, and then the F-150 will be temporarily assigned to the police department until it hits 150, and then it'll be rotated down again to the building department. So that is the 2020 F-150 that's on that resolution. The other 2 vehicles, the 2011 Taurus, which is being used, and so that F-150 has a 9 to 10 year life expectancy that we're looking at using it for in between the 2 departments. The other vehicle is the 2011 Ford Taurus, which is assigned to our investigator vehicle. That's at 100,000 miles now, and that's our fleet management strategy. When they hit that 100,000 mile mark, we rotate them out. So that'll be replaced with an unmarked SUV, and the cost of that is $42,396 and 26 cents. And then the third vehicle is the 2015 marked squad car with 125. That'll be auctioned off and replaced also with a SUV Ford Explorer. Slightly more expensive because we have to equip it different. So you're looking at about $43,287 on that one. The funding strategies on them is the building department and the police department are sharing the cost of the purchase of the F-150. Half of life will be used in the police department, the other half will be used in the building department. So we're sharing the cost of that one. The marked squad car will come out of the capital improvement budget for 2020. And the investigator vehicle, we're actually going to use police impound lot funds to replace that one. The purchase of it and then the equipping of it will come out of the CIP. All 3 of these vehicles going out of service will be auctioned, and those funds will be redirected back to the CIP to offset the cost of these 3 vehicles.
Chief Hoppy, just a couple questions.
Yep.
This rotation that you've been doing with the city has gone on for how long? How many years would you say you've been doing this replacement?
We started the 100,000 mile replacement mark in the PD about 10 years ago, and then probably maybe 5 years ago we started, 4 to 5 years ago we started including the building department. And as their needs have expanded, from 1 to 2 vehicles, that strategy has slightly changed so that we can support both of those.
Okay, and I know that first getting on council and looking at the rotation, I probably wasn't the biggest fan until I did a ride-along and realized just exactly how hard these cars get run and why we have to go through them so fast. Could you explain just a little bit more, because I know we have people that are watching, just how hard these cars are ran and why that replacement kind of came about?
So the marked cars are definitely used a lot harder than our unmarked vehicles for sure. And the type of driving that they do, it's, you know, it's not the normal driving I do with my personal vehicle, or you probably do with yours. It's a lot of, you know, quick accelerations, a lot of braking, a lot of time on city streets. There's got a lot of engine time on them, you know, where we don't shut them off because it's our mobile offices, not only to maintain ambient temperature in the vehicle during the summer and the winter because we're dealing medical equipment, but also for the computer equipments inside, we keep them running so that we don't lose connectivity or kill our battery, you know, when they're out of the car. So they get a lot of heavy use on them for sure. The unmarked, we don't, you know, they don't get quite as heavy a use as that on them, you know, but they still occasionally are used in a, you know, a high-speed capacity. So it's really important that we have high reliability of these vehicles so that in the emergency, they do work. They're not, you know, they're not broke down, or they do start, or we don't have braking issues when we're in pursuits or going to emergency calls. So there is a little bit more expectation out of them when it comes to reliability.
I know when I was on those ride-alongs, I think there was several pursuits that we were in, and you just see how hard the engines run, how fast they need to go. So I recommend if anybody doesn't believe in this type of rotation and why we do it, they need to do a ride-along. So any other questions?
I have some questions.
Yeah.
Where's the car you're driving gonna go?
The one I'm driving will go down to the building department.
How many miles is on your car right now?
I think it's right around 59 and some change, I think. So by the time that we get these vehicles in, it takes about, you know, 5 to 6 months by the time we get them and equip them, and then that goes down to the building department. It'll probably have 50-some thousand on it.
The investigator car, that's always been just the investigator car, isn't it?
Correct.
That's one with 100,000 miles on it?
Yep.
Would make more sense to me to see that go down the building and your car go down to investigation. And I'm not in favor of buying another pickup, I'll be honest with you right now. I am in favor of the other two vehicles. But,
Yeah, I mean, we
my
can,
theory is,
what we'd be doing is rotating a car with 100,000 miles down to the building department. It's partly what we're trying to get away from, is that we can get them a car with 50,000 that they can drive for 6 years. And when we, you know, part of the strategy on it is we go with the 100,000 mile warranty, 5-year, 100,000 mile extended warranty, which really works well in the patrol vehicle. We've used them almost on every vehicle, to be honest with you. And so we're trying to maximize those miles, where if we burn, you know, the police department burns off significantly more miles than any other department. So if we can burn the first 50,000 off in about 3 years, we can get another 2 to 3 years warranty under that vehicle and get it up to around that 70,000 mile mark before it falls off. Where, like, we looked at the fire department, and we can buy them a new vehicle, but they may only put 30,000 miles on it, and in, you know, 4 or 5 years, we don't maximize that warranty. So, you know, we can rotate definitely the one I'm driving down to investigation, but then that's gonna put a 100,000 mile vehicle back down to the building.
but that's one that's never been driven hard, that's always been the investigator car.
It has not been driven hard. No, it's been driven reasonably, not like a patrol car for sure.
Right, that should last a long time yet. I don't think he drives too far out of the area. The building is just more locally right in town here, so.
What kind of car? It's the Taurus, the investigator car?
Yeah, it's the same, it's identical to the building official car that's out there
Is
right
that
now.
all-wheel drive?
It's all-wheel drive, and that's also the one that we're looking at replacing in the building officials, you know, phasing these Tauruses out. You know, they're at that 9-year mark, 100,000 and over, and based on our strategy, that's kind of the mark where we move them out before they, you know, they start costing us money. So, I mean, it's just it's a global strategy we've been talking about for a while, and that we've been implementing and kind of sticking to, but.
One of the things that I'm in charge of our fleet vehicles where I work currently, and one of the things that we did we got rid of the cars, even though they're all-wheel drive, they still get stuck on sites. And I know Fred and I have talked about that before. That was why I converted all ours to the SUVs. I'm on about the same rotation schedule as we are here. But that was that main reason we did it. We got rid of the cars because of the low ground clearance. And when we do these larger developments, when you have multiple homes in there, it's hard for him to get in and out of there with that Taurus. So the SUV or the truck tends to be more
And
practical, in my opinion.
And
but
that was
again,
discussion we had with Fred also is, considering that, your SUV and your truck are now the same cost relatively,
Right.
within a couple $100. The question, posed to him is, which one would suit you better? Because you're gonna have it 6 years, we're gonna probably use it 3. And in his opinion, he thought the better ground clearance, especially with the developments and as you're going in and building, apologize. As you're going in and doing developments and you have, houses that start before the roads are completed,
Correct, yeah.
there's issues getting back to them. So in his, opinion, he thought that the vehicle, the pickup would be better suited for him long-term in the building department. So that's kind of the deciding factor is, do we stick with an SUV, do we go to this pickup? All things considered equal costs, really came down to, how they wanted to use that vehicle in the last 2/3 of its life.
Okay. Any further questions?
No, that's it. That's all I have.
Okay, so I am gonna do a roll call on each one of the resolutions 13, 14, and 15. Resolution 13, motion to approve 20-2017, a resolution approving the purchase of one 2020 Ford F-150 Police Responder Pickup Truck Pursuit Vehicle and build out for the Wyoming Police Department in the amount of $42,6910. Do we have a motion? Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve by Member Schilling. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Member Luger. I will go by roll call. Member Zeros.
Nay.
Member
Excuse me,
Luger.
nay.
Member
Aye.
Luger. Member Schilling.
Aye.
Member Yeager.
Aye.
Mayor Iverson is yes. It does pass. Number 14, to consider Resolution 20-02-18, a resolution approving the purchase of one 2020 Ford Explorer SUV utility pursuit vehicle and build out for the Wyoming Police Department in the amount of $42,396.26. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion to approve by Member Zeros. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Member Schilling. All in favor?
Aye.
Nope.
No, it's Claire.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Claire. Yep,
Yep.
and then I'm gonna do roll call. So we'll do a second by Member Luger, and I'll do roll call. Member Zeros.
Aye.
Member Luger.
Aye.
Member Schilling.
Aye.
Member Yeager.
Aye.
Mayor Iverson is aye, so approved. Number 15, to consider Resolution 20-0219, a resolution approving the purchase of one 2020 Ford Explorer SUV utility pursuit vehicle and build out for the Wyoming Police Department in the amount of $43,287.26. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion to approve by Member Zeros. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Member Schilling. We will now go around for roll call. Member Zeros.
Aye.
Member Luger.
Aye.
Member Schilling.
Aye.
Member Yeager.
Aye.
Mayor Iverson is aye, so passed. Number 16, to consider Resolution 20-0220, a resolution approving the application for the assistance to the firefighters grant. Chief Hoppy?
All right, appreciate that. Do want to apologize for the last minute notice on this one. We just received it earlier this week, but it has some urgency behind it in order to make our deadlines. As you know, when we took over the 800 megahertz radios, it is our responsibility to do replacement of that in the future. And part of that, when we took those over, we informed the council that we'd be looking for grant opportunities in the future to replace those existing radios. And the proposal that we have in front of you is for a resolution to support a joint grant countywide. So what essentially is happening is all of the fire departments in Chisago County and police departments are joining in on a fire grant, assistant fire grant to replace the radios, the portables and the truck radios in our vehicles. There's usually greater success when we do things as groups when it comes to grant writing because it shows collaboration and cooperation. And so in order to give us the best possible chance of getting this grant, we've all agreed to do it as a collaborative group rather than as individual agencies. And North Branch is going to be taking the grant writing lead on this. So our responsibility for part of participating in the grant is that we would pay our portion of the grant writing fee. So the total grant writing fee is going to be about $1,300, and that would be equally split amongst all of the entities that are joining in on this grant. So we would pay our portion of that. The other piece of it is going to be a fund matching grant. So most of the time, this AFG grant, they'll fund up to 80 or 90% of the total cost of the products, which means that we would have to be willing to, as an organization, accept the other 10 to 20% expense if we were awarded. It could be, 70, 60, 30, 80, 90, whatever that they come back with, but we want to be able to have a resolution showing that our council would support funding the ungranted portion funds of the purchase. So if they fund 80%, we would purchase or fund the other 20% or whatever that they come back with. Because it is a large cooperative grant, fire departments, because it's an AFG, Assistance to Firefighter grant, fire departments will get priority on it. If we can include the police departments in on this, that's a bonus. And so that would, once they do receive those funds, or if they receive those funds, there would be a formula to determine how much each agency would get in funding in order to replace those radios. So the resolution in front of you today is a resolution to support participating in the cooperative grant for the Assistance to Firefighter grant that's going to be submitted countywide.
I am happy to see that this is happening, because I know this was one of the issues that we went through with the armor agreement with the mayors in the townships. So working together and applying for these grants was very important for all of the entities coming together, and I'm happy that Commissioner McMahon also jumped in on this as well. So we are thankful for the county commissioner for doing that too. So, and this is something that has to change. If we go through it again, it has to change to different entities taking on that fiscal reporting part of it, right? Or that it can't always be the same department applying for that grant, right?
So normally under a cooperative grant like this, that fiscal responsibility will usually change from year to year. In this particular one, it's a one-time grant recipient, so if we were to receive it as a group, North Branch would be the fiscal agency that would then receive all of the money in, and then they would disseminate it out and we'll draft an agreement so everybody understands up front how that will be calculated and determined. If we don't get it this year, we didn't get it last year, and if we don't get it this year, then most likely that fiscal responsibility will shift to a different entity and let them go through the legwork of having to submit for the grant. We've submitted the last 3 years, and I can tell you it's a lot of work. Even with a grant writer, it's a lot of work to be able to pull that together. But to pull it together for 10 different entities, is even a lot more work. There's a multiplier in there.
And it might give us a better chance as well, correct?
By doing it as a collaborative, cooperative grant, it usually gives us a lot better chance than if we were to apply for those individually, because we would be competing against each other for those resources. So the likelihood that the federal government would award grants to 10 entities within the same county is unlikely. So if we collaborate, it's one entity that they're awarding rather than trying to support 10 out of 10.
Okay, perfect. More questions? All right, Member Yeager?
So if we were to get this grant, we would be paying for our own radios.
So if we were to receive the grant, for instance, I'm just going to use off the top of my head, let's say it costs us $180,000 to replace our radios, and the grant receives funding from the federal government, we would anticipate seeing probably 70 or 80% of that $180,000 in federal grant money, and then we would use our capital improvement funds to pay for the remainder.
Well, that wasn't quite it.
Okay.
Allow me to rephrase. With 10 entities paying in, going for this, our cash layout would be only for Wyoming's radios,
Correct.
not everybody else's
No,
too.
no, the funds would be managed by one fiscal entity.
But every entity would be
Purchase
responsible for their own radios.
Yeah, so every entity would be responsible for the purchase of and continued ownership of
Right.
their own radios. The funds would just be distributed to support those purchases.
That's fine. How many radios, fire and police radios, do we have in Wyoming?
Right off the top of my head, I think we're at like 57, if I'm not mistaken.
Total?
Total?
Well, the grant would only cover primarily fire, so what would
So-
be the split?
I think it's 35 and 35 or 25, something right in there. I think there's about 10 difference. Fire has more than the police department does, and
Okay,
I don't have the number right off the top of my head, but it's pretty close between portable radios and stationary radios. It's about 10 difference.
and then would we be replacing all our radios at one time or staggered?
It depends. I think we reserve that, for, let's see if we get the grant and how much it is, and do we have the capital? Because we've already been budgeting capital for replacement of these radios.
That's what I figured.
And if we can replace them as a lump, it's always great, because then we're maintaining one technology per se. We have one model. That way, if we purchase in one year, the next year they could change the model. Now we're trying to support two different model types. It's always easier to do it as one. But, if we don't have those funds, we can always, separate that out and purchase them under a different strategy. But I think we just we retain that until we know if we have a grant or comes time to purchase, and we make that decision at the end, I think.
And then the grant is it looks on your memo, 90%?
They'll go up to 90%.
Okay,
They won't go to 100, but they'll go up to 90, but we've seen them, it's kind of arbitrary what they will. They won't always go to, 90%, but they have the capacity to go to, but not exceed 90%.
okay, because it said if this is approved, 90% of this would be grant funded, so it's up to 90%.
Up to 90%.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further questions? If not, we need a motion to approve resolution 20-02-20, a resolution approving the application for the assistance to firefighter grants. Do we have a motion to approve? I will approve that. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by member Zerwas. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So approved. Number 17, to consider a letter of support for the U.S. Highway 8 reconstruction project for federal financial assistance under the U.S. Department of Transportation Discrepancy Grant Program. I believe Mr. Linwood?
Mayor, members of the council, this once again, apologize on this being in addition to your agenda late. We try to avoid that, but I received an email today from Chisago County staff in regards to support for this federal funding for the Highway project. As you all are aware, that the county has been seeking funds for the Highway project to do a significant expansion and upgrade for mainly access and safety, and then economic development as well. The deadline on this particular grant was February 12th, so there was some urgency to get it done. Obviously, we don't have another meeting again until the 18th, so I told Mr. Triplett that we would do our best to get it on in front of our council. So essentially, the obligation is just that the city is supportive of the Chisago County going for those federal financial assistance dollars through the Department of Transportation. I'll stand for any questions.
Questions?
What's the chance of getting any state money on top of this?
I think that's ongoing. I know that, in speaking to Mr. Triplett, I know that they're working hard with both of our local reps, our House and Senate members, to try to keep pushing with members from the different Forest Lake and the different entities. So I know this time they're going to be working hard at both, but I know last time they received some money, obviously, for the environmental assessment worksheet and the plan design that they're doing, but I really haven't had that conversation with this time around if they feel their chances are better or stronger. But certainly, I think we plan to have a work session with the council in the near future regarding some of the preliminary access ideas on Highway 8. I can certainly follow up with him and maybe have a little better idea to answer your question, maybe a little more definitively, what if they feel they have a more positive chance for not only that federal but that state funding too.
Yeah.
All right, if there are no further questions, we need a motion to approve this, is what you want?
Yes,
Mr.
please.
Linwood? Okay. Mr. Zer, did you have a question?
No, I don't have a
Oh,
question.
okay. All right, so we need a motion to approve the letter of support for the U.S. Highway 8 reconstruction project for federal financial assistance. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right then.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve by member Luger. We have a second by member Zeros. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Coin flipping.
So moved. I think that was a first, actually.
Yeah, that was good.
All right, so we are going to move to council reports, and we'll start with member Yeager.
Oh, I attended the Highway 8 open house last Tuesday. It was a really nice event, and thank you all for coming.
Okay. And then member Schilling and member Zeros, are you?
No report?
I'll actually, I have no report for either. I've been under the weather. I'd like to thank you guys for coming, and then again, staff for doing such a great job on these. I like the detail. It limits my questions, so
Okay,
thank you all.
I have no report.
okay, Member Luker?
I attended the Park Advisory Commission meeting last night. In addition to discussing the Swenson Park DNR grant resolution that appeared on tonight's consent agenda, the Park Advisory Commission also discussed 2020 goals and initiatives, including park development, partnerships with community groups, park improvement ideas, and then community and outreach with our community. And that's about it. That's all I have.
Thank you. All right, I had 2 busy weeks. I attended the League of Minnesota Cities 2-day conference on January 24th and 25th. A lot of great speakers were brought in to help us learn to be better elected officials, and as always, a lot of networking among the cities from all over Minnesota. Just an awesome conference. I attended the Planning Commission meeting on January 28th. The discussion continues on our comprehensive plan and where we want to proceed with new housing developments coming to the city, along with several other developments looking at what we have to offer. The commission believes this is a time to really look at how we want to shape our city for future development. Before the Planning Commission, I also attended the Highway 8 open house, which was well attended and lots of excitement. I attended the Fire Relief Association on January 29th. And last but not least, I attended the Park Advisory Board meeting on February 3rd. So it was a busy couple of weeks. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. We need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.